I wanted to come back to the subject of mirroring just real quickly. In my last video, I said I was going to finish up that subject, but something occurred to me last night, and I wanted to come back for just a minute. When I spoke about this man, and I can't just keep calling him this man or this person, so I'm going to refer to him from now on. Anytime that I reference him, I'm going to call him R, the letter R, so anyway, when R was telling me about his wife cheating on him, spending all of her time talking to other people on her phone, not paying attention to him, not wanting to do things with him or spend time with him, being mean to him or talking down to him, that is a form of mirroring. It occurred to me later. I don't know this woman personally. What little bit I have learned about her from other people and from kind of an interaction that I had with her later on is that she is a difficult person. Everyone has told me she's very hard to get along with. She's very unfriendly, and that could be because she spent a good portion of her life with this narcissist. But anyway, I just wanted to say, when he was telling me those things about her, it was actually mirroring his own behavior. When he was with him, I never had that. He never was honest with me about that. But that was a form of mirroring. That's an example. When I allowed myself to give in and talk to him about personal issues, he used those to transfer to someone else. So he very well was probably the one in this story who was talking to other people online. He was probably the one in the story who was planning to leave or to break up his relationship. I never once had any ability to feel happiness in any way. I don't want to give him that credit, because it was probably more along the lines of he was just looking for a new source of supply. He had grown tired of her, and I'm sure that in the years that they had spent together, that he had probably cheated before. Maybe they had separated and they'd gone through this before. I never learned that, but I know he later on, and I've never talked to anyone about this. This is very private. Later on, when he hoovered me after probably close to a year after the relationship ended, and it could have been a form of gaslighting. He could have been telling me this just to get my goat, so to speak, just to kind of rile me up, to see if there was anything still there, to see if he could get a rise out of me, if I still had any kind of feeling toward him. Is that he began talking to me about some woman, and he was casually talking about this woman, and then he said, well, I was seeing her a long time before you came along. And that was new on me. I had no idea. That in itself really scared me, because I had never, I was stupid. I was living under such a brainwashed fog, and even after it ended, I defended this man, and I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I always accepted his explanation that the reason he went back into the relationship into the family's dynamic was because of his child, and because it was causing his child pain. I never wanted to be a person that would cause anybody pain or anybody's child. So I accepted that. Of course, I learned later that probably wasn't true. He found himself having difficulties, and that was too much for him to take on. So he had to run back to what was familiar. But anyway, that's a form of mirroring. That's an example. If you begin talking to someone whether it's online or whether it's someone you meet in a work, or if you're set up on a date, or it doesn't matter what the relationship is. If they begin telling you things that you have shared with them, and they say that that's happened to them as well, if they really seem like they understand you, and I'm not saying, that it's not great to have a friend who shares the same situations and emotions and can kind of give you some insight into whatever's happening. But, just kind of guard yourself a little bit. It's really sad that in this world we live in that we have to tell people this. Don't make friends too quickly. Don't get into a relationship too quickly. But if you're in a relationship and it's bad and it's ending and it's time for it to be over, and you've realized this for a long time, and you decide to make that move and to leave that relationship, do not get into another relationship too quickly. If you have a need for sex, if you have a need for companionship, if you have a need to go out and party or go out and hang out or whatever, do that. And I shouldn't have to tell anyone this in 2019, but if you're having sex with someone, kind of guard yourself, kind of use protection. I always use protection, and just kind of don't be like a loosey-goosey. I don't want to sound like my grandmother and say a floozy, but yeah, a loosey-goosey. But, have fun, enjoy your life, get out there, and don't tie yourself to one person too soon. If you really start having feelings for someone, that's great. That's great. It's always great and that's one thing that got me, was that I hadn't had those feelings in a long time. And when he began to talk to me about how he was attracted to me and wanted to spend time with me, and the first time that he kissed me, and these oxytocin and endorphins and all these hormones started fluctuating in myself and me, a woman in my late 40s. It was great. It felt great. And it's also a kind of a way that they brainwash you, because those hormones, they block out your radar, and it's great to feel good. It's great to, I exercise a lot. I walk. I've talked about that. It gives me a kind of a rush. It gives me a kind of a buzz, and that's a thing that you're addicted to that person. You can't wait to get on your phone and talk to them. You can't wait to see them. You can't wait to touch them and hang out with them. But I've got off the subject of mirroring, but I'm going to wrap this up. I just wanted to come back to that and say that everything that he told me about her and how she treated him and how she cheated on him, and it was probably about, I don't want to give percentages because I'm not an expert, but there was probably a little smattering of truth hidden in that story. That she probably was a difficult person, and she probably didn't give him, when you're with someone for a really long time, she probably wasn't giving him a lot of attention in the bedroom, affection, and she probably wasn't really feeling it the way that I was in my relationship. Well, now, whether she was cheating and talking to other men, that's not my place to say, but I doubt that that's the reason why their relationship ended. I would say more than likely the narcissist ended the relationship because he had found another supply, and as he told me, whether it was true or it wasn't true, that he already had someone else that he was involved with before I came along. he very well could have been planning to be with that person, and then, he picked me up on the radar and thought he would give me a try and see how things went in that area. But, yeah, I just wanted to come back to that subject real quick and clear that up. I have to, there's going to come a time, this point in our beginning weeks of banter and talk, I was under the impression that this man was jilted and rejected and left. That he had, his woman, his wife, they weren't married, but I will say wife, that she had left and taken the child. And his story went back and forth as we became closer and became more involved. His story began to change and embellish and kind of sway away from the original, and that a normal person would have picked up those red flags. And if I did pick up something and say, well, didn't you tell me something different earlier? He would get mad at me and try to transfer that blame and, oh, you didn't hear me right. And that's another thing to watch for. If they tell you something and then a week or two later they kind of change that, I think people are smart enough to, in reality and in everyday life, we're smart enough to pick up signals and pick up lies. But when you're in the throes of a new relationship and you're feeling those, that attraction and that desire and that want to explore new avenues, and especially if you've laid dormant for a long time in a stale relationship, and you're finally starting to feel a freedom, and you're getting out there and you're meeting people, you can become distracted by the excitement of it. So I'm just saying to just kind of, I don't want to say don't enjoy yourself, and those feelings are wonderful feelings. But, after a while, even in the early stages of a relationship, that kind of dies down, that burst of excitement. And you kind of start, your eyes become a little more clear and your mind becomes a little more clear. And always, if you pick up on something that doesn't seem right, just, kind of explore that and investigate. And don't allow yourself to fall victim to a narcissist who is going to use you and abuse you beyond your wildest imagination. And just, have fun, but be careful, and don't believe all the hype. Thanks for listening.